We are tearing apart this lovely steel boat. It's enough to break your heart, but I will tell you why it had to be done. And at the end, I will tell you how I feel about the boat after everything that you're about to see. This looks like a perfectly normal door to an aft cabin, but when you come in here, the entire bed and floor have been removed. This was a centerline queen, but we started chipping away at some suspicious bubbling paint, and it turned out to be corrosion hiding underneath, so everything came out. The wiring, the hoses, the woodwork, and we are grinding away at the paint. We think that salt water may have gotten in through leaking deck fittings in the past because there were salt crystals and sand underneath along the hull, and that's where the worst of the corrosion was. The wooden floor had trapped water against the hull, but the steel above that is mostly in great condition. We had been cutting plates out of the hull to replace them, but we've realized that most of the corrosion is just pitting. We checked some of the deeper pits by drilling through to daylight, and even there, the hull still has about half of its original thickness. We have a special high strength kind of steel called Corten, and ultrasound testing showed on average it is still actually the original 4 millimeters thick. So our welder is trying a new strategy of using TIG welding to just fill the pits. Camera shy husband and I took a welding class and realized, no, this has a long learning curve. So welding is one of the only things that we don't do ourselves on the boat. In places where the pitting is denser, the welder is doing pad welding to lay down like a layer of metal, but even that is still faster than replacing whole plates. But what is not fast is prepping the steel so that paint will stick. The best way to texture the steel is sandblasting, and we did try a small hobby sandblaster, but it did virtually nothing and managed to make a giant mess anyway. So maybe one day we would remove the whole interior of the boat and do professional sandblasting, but not ready to go there yet. So for now, we're stuck with mechanical texturing. Grinders, sanders, and needle guns don't give the right tooth for the paint and don't fit into all these tight corners anyway. So we're refinishing a 46-foot boat, mostly with this tiny burr on a rotary tool. It fits into tight spaces, and it seems to give a pretty good texture for paint adhesion. Hopefully the kind of tooth that sandblasting provides. It's not as good as sandblasting because it can only get the surface, and if you look at it from an angle, you can see that there's still rust in there. So we're going to rely on the penetrating epoxy that will really get into tiny nooks and crannies and adhere well, we're hoping. We use DeVoe Pre-Prime for that, and then we follow it up with Amerlock 2, which is a good, strong epoxy. Steelboat owners used to like rust converter, which forms an inert coating, but it didn't necessarily adhere perfectly. It was more prone to failure. So modern thinking has definitely evolved towards good two-part epoxies. Other hull types are not without their problems. Fiberglass is the most common hull, and it can get osmotic blisters, which are pockmarks below the waterline, that are in some cases just cosmetic but take a lot of work, and in some cases are very serious. And fiberglass can actually bend in some hulls that aren't as thick as others. It can do oil canning at the bow from beating into waves. And also where jack stands press against the hull can actually bend it if it's been sitting for a few years. And fiberglass isn't as strong as metal. Aluminum is a good, strong boat building material, but it's not as strong as steel, and it is more prone to a pitting corrosion where there can be a needle-like pit that actually is almost invisible but goes right through. And aluminum is very reactive. And so if there's a stray current, you know, like a wire underneath the marina dock or a neighbor's boat that isn't well grounded, you can get a giant problem on an aluminum boat in a matter of days. That's scary. And of course, wood is hardly anyone uses it anymore. It's beautiful, but the amount of labor to maintain a wooden hull is just insane. Oh, and ferrous cement? No, thank you. So steel still wins my vote for strength and durability. When we pulled out the bed and the floor in the aft cabin, we realized that they weren't actually attached to the hull at all. And that could be dangerous in a knockdown. So we're gonna put them back better. And I'm actually designing a way to hang them from sort of the cross beams, the steel framing, with brackets, so they don't actually sit on the hull to trap moisture against the steel of the hull itself. Well, that was a shit ton of work. So how do I feel about it now? Well, if we tried to refinish the whole interior hull at once, we would never launch. So we are going to set it aside for now. And we are going to now focus on stopping water entry from leaking deck fittings and the teak seams, because salt water inside a steel hull, not great. I am happy that the steel under the paint was mostly just pitted and that we're addressing the little areas that were deeper. And I can't count how many sailors around us have said, you're gonna be happy. You are going to have a super strong boat. And yes, this is still my top choice for our blue water adventures to come. And if that looked like a lot, wait till you see all the other things we're working on. Actually, not just boat projects. I will try to make a video soon with a recipe from the cookbook I'm writing too. Onwards.